Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Major Step Podcast, where me and my co-host, Angela Lucuski, are exploring all the majors and minors here at St. Vincent College. Today, we're exploring the chemistry major with Dr. Gravelle, the chairman of the chemistry department. We're happy to have you on.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Gravelle, so we're just going to start off asking a little bit about yourself, your history with teaching chemistry, and what led you to teaching it at St. Vincent College.
So I went to college at a small Catholic Benedict liberal arts college in central Minnesota.
Okay.
And so when this job opened up, at the time I was actually in Texas in a postdoctoral position, and I saw it and I said I enjoy that environment and I wanted to come back to it. And so when I visited, it's really enjoyed Western Pennsylvania, so I'd never been here before. And in fact, when we moved here, my wife hadn't seen the area, and she just trusted me. I said, it's kind of like England, kind of rolling hills and damp weather, and so she enjoyed it, and so we've been here for 33 years now.
Wow,
so.
okay.
Awesome. When you were studying chemistry in college back in Michigan, what were Minnesota? What were the kinds of things that you enjoyed researching or experimenting on?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's interesting. I did a research project in analytical chemistry that didn't quite pan out, so it was kind of interesting. So we were studying, one of the big projects there is they had a incinerator, and they wanted to test the particulates coming out of the incinerator, but we were still developing equipment to do it. So didn't get very far. One thing is I had an internship, and we really try to encourage our students to do it too. I had an industrial internship at 3M in St. Paul, Minnesota, and they did a lot of really basic fundamental research there, and that got me excited for for doing research, and they gave me good suggestions, and so that was my next path after college, was to go to graduate school, and so the research is what enticed me to go to graduate school, and that's what I did, and spent my years studying laser photolysis.
Okay.
Graduate school. Yeah.
So moving a little bit to the chem department here, just sort of a broad overview. What are the types of courses that students need to take to get a degree in chemistry from here?
So let me just kind of give you a bigger overview.
Yeah, absolutely.
We offer 4 majors, and so chemistry, biochemistry, environmental chemistry, and chemical and biological analysis.
Okay.
So the first 3 majors are very similar to one another, and they really differ in the upper level courses. So for any of those first 3, chemistry, biochemistry, environmental chemistry, they take kind of a common set in the first 3 years, which is general chemistry as a freshman, organic chemistry as sophomores, and then physical chemistry and analytical chemistry, instrumental analysis, and the associated labs in their junior year. So all of our courses are lab-based, and that's a heavy emphasis. Our department is ACS approved, American Chemical Society approved, which means that we need to follow certain guidelines. And one of those guidelines is to be sure we have our students come out with, I believe it's 500 hours of lab time throughout their career.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so they have to have a lot of lab. In their 4th year, 3rd and 4th year, there are specialized courses for each of the majors. So we have something called like advanced chemical methods for the chemistry majors. They get in and they're basically doing research level work. They're looking up research articles and trying to follow procedures and things like that. Biochemistry has a biochemistry lab, actually 2-semester biochemistry lab. And then environmental chemistry has something called advanced environmental chemistry lecture course, and then methods of environmental analysis, the lab course. So each of them has their own set of lecture and lab courses at the upper level. And the common thing, though, is that all these majors have a research component. So it's a 3-semester research component. And that's really an important part for us, because they have to, in their junior year, design and propose a research project to perform in their senior year,
okay,
which they do. And then they write it up as a thesis in the spring of their senior year. So that's a really important independent project, and the other lab courses are kind of building up to that to try to get the students to think more and more independently as they go through their curriculum.
Gotcha. Okay.
And what are some of the things that students complete in the laboratory? Like what kind of labs
So
Are they?
We're
Well,
both
the-
not science people, so
Yeah.
Right.
forgive us if we're asking dumb questions.
No. We try to cover a gamut of things. So we see it. The way we've kind of split things up is we see there's sort of a synthetic side to chemistry where you make molecules and things, and there's an analytical side where you study what those molecules are. And I'll expand a physical analytical side. So I'm a physical chemist, and so I study the physical principles underlying chemistry. So there's a wide variety of things that students encounter. So in general chemistry, the students are kind of testing different properties of molecules and molecular behavior and reactions and things like that. As sophomores, when they take organic chemistry, that's a synthetic kind of thing. They're making molecules and extracting different types of, like they do, flavorings and things like that. So and other kind of interesting chemicals that they make or that they separate and extract. And then they have to analyze it with our instrumentation. So we have some instruments available near the lab, and then we have a separate instrument room with a lot of equipment in it. So it's a very equipment-heavy major. So,
Can imagine.
so that's some of the things that students encounter.
So you touched on it just a little bit in your two previous answers, but what is the balance like between some of the lecture courses and then some of the hands-on stuff? Like a lot of majors are primarily lecture based with some hands-on stuff. Obviously, most of the sciences it's the reverse. So how do you see students respond to some of that?
Well, the two really go together. So if you're going to take organic chemistry, you'll take the associated lab, and in that case, at sophomore level, the content of the lab will correspond kind of roughly with what's going on in the lecture. In upper level, say in physical chemistry, which students take as a junior, the labs use principles from physical chemistry, but they not necessarily matched one for one. So it's usually these things are paired. So the labs aren't kind of standalone necessarily.
Right.
We do have a couple standalone labs, but for the most part, the lecture and labs are paired together. So you always get to see, if you're talking about something that's abstract and theoretical in class, well, you get to see it in lab,
Right.
so it makes it more real.
Yeah, absolutely.
That makes sense. So, as you said, chemistry and science in general could be a very difficult subject. So, what would you say to students that are coming into St. Vincent and maybe worried about how difficult these courses may be? Because the chemistry courses that I've taken in the past I enjoyed very much, but they were a little difficult. So, what would you say to those upcoming students?
That's very diplomatic of you, by the way. So, but seriously, the courses are challenging, as I hope every major is challenging. But one thing that we have is that we have a lot of faculty in the department, and our classes are small. And this is an important distinction that I'd like to point out to people who are visiting the campus. With these small class sizes, the students can interact with us on a regular basis. And so if you have questions, it's easy to contact us faculty. And so all my Schoology pages, for my courses, they all have a link right on front. You just click the link, and it shows you when I'm available, and just click on a time that you're available, and you just show up at that time. And so it's really flexible, and we can do that. In addition, up in the Boyer School, we have a program called CLP, Collaborative Learning Program, and that's really important. It's really a step beyond merely tutoring, although we do have tutors available for the students as well. But this is a weekly program in our kind of first 2 years, general chemistry and organic chemistry, where students will meet once a week in the evening, typically, with a upper level student who's been very successful in the major, knows how to communicate it. They develop worksheets, and then the students work on those worksheets with that upper level student. It provides them with a kind of a low risk or
Right.
non-threatening kind of casual atmosphere to learn the material and explore it more deeply. So we have a lot of resources, and we pay attention to that. We look at how the grades for those students compare to grades of students who don't participate in that CLP program. It's a voluntary program. So we make sure that is working for students. So we develop strategies that help the students, that are proven to help the students in our courses. A lot of active learning in our courses to make sure that students are working on material in the class and not just, we're not just up front of a lecture hall talking at the students.
Right.
They're not going to learn that way.
Right.
Not science. It has to be hands-on. Even in the lecture, it's still hands-on. It's just that you're working paper and pencil trying to solve problems. In my physical chemistry class, you're working on a computer because we're using computer software to solve problems and solve complex math problems and things. So, it's very hands-on and very kind of one-to-one interaction with faculty.
I would say just across the board, speaking from a student in the chemical school, but it sounds like the same thing with Boyer, that St. Vincent is really good with providing students resources for all majors. If whatever you're struggling in, there's tutors and the CLP thing. Like, I think everybody is really good at that. So if anybody's worried about any major coming in, I think that's an important factor.
Yep.
So you mentioned that you did an internship in school. What type of internships would be available here for students doing chem degrees? Like, what are some typical things that they do here?
Right. So again, very important. We on our Schoology pages in our courses, we try to emphasize and advertise some of the internships that are available. There's broadly two flavors of internships. There's a large NSF-funded program called Research Experience for Undergraduates. So most R1 major research universities will have this RU program. So Pitt, Penn State, Duquesne, CMU, all these places, and across the country will have these research experience for undergraduates where the intent is to bring in undergraduate students to do research with the graduate students at these schools during the summer. And so that's academic research, very fundamental research. There's also opportunities to do internships at companies. So any company that makes anything is going to need a chemist on the staff, and so there's a lot of internships at these places. And students sometimes they'll go far afield and see a different part of the country and just learn some new chemistry. And so it's very interesting to see how chemistry is applied to different areas.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. Do a lot of students in the chemistry department study like just chemistry or biochemistry, or do they typically pair it with something else like a double major or a minor in like bio or engineering, things like that?
So we have had just graduated a student who did a biochemistry major in 3 years and then took an engineering major in his 4th year, but that's unusual.
Wow.
Biochemistry is a very full major, so there isn't a lot of space. Students do it. Typically, if students in our department get a minor in something, they'll minor in math because it's fairly easy. We require 3 semesters of math, so you just need 2 more semesters and you've got the minor.
Right.
We do have a student, I don't know if he's going to go through with it, but we have a student who is trying to triple major in chemistry, physics, and math. I don't know.
Wow.
I think reality's starting to creep up and say, I've got to dial it back.
Yeah, I would imagine. Wow.
So, but yeah, no. So we get a number of really strong students. It's a pleasure to teach because they're engaged, they want to learn, and yeah, it's hard work, but they're willing to put the work in.
So, post graduation, what have some of your students gone on to do in their careers, and what do you guys recommend if people aren't totally sure what they want to do with a chem degree? So it's kind of like a 2-part question.
Right. So about half our students go on in industry, and I think that probably actually going down a little bit. A lot of our students go on to professional school, like a medical school or a health-related occupation, or they can go on to graduate school. So about a quarter of our students go on to graduate school.
Okay.
You can work in industry at the bachelor's level, at the master's level, or at the PhD level. And so there's a lot of flexibility in chemistry, getting a chemistry major, and there's a lot of jobs available out there. So the students do go on and do that. We've had students go into pharmacy after they get a chemistry degree. So it's a very versatile degree. You've got that technical background.
Mm-hmm.
You could be a lawyer if you want, or do something, be a consultant at a company that they need some technical expertise. So there's a broad range of things that our students have done. Some have worked in government labs, some worked in industrial labs and gone up the technical ladder to do research, or gone up the managerial ladder and kind of more of a manager kind of position. So yeah, we've had a wide variety of occupations that students have done after they graduate from here.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we've talked about our past 2 episodes. Like, even though the majors may seem so small, like, there's plenty of opportunity outside of it.
Yeah, I think that's another thing that St. Vincent works on, especially with the core curriculum they put together here. Like, I think it's they stress that while you're majoring in one thing, like, the resources here help you, that you can maybe deviate just a little bit beyond what might be a typical path.
Right. It's important to be broadly educated, because the interviewees at these jobs aren't going to ask you, can you calculate this, S orbital or something like
Right.
that. What they're going to ask you is, how are you working in teams? Mm-hmm. How are you at critical thinking? How are you at lateral thinking, thinking outside the box?
Yeah, some of these non-teachable skills.
Yeah. So we try to incorporate those things into our teaching as well, because those are, those skills, life skills, are just really important.
Right.
Absolutely.
So I do have one quick last question for you, because you said that the major's pretty full and some of the courses are chronological. Are there any courses that you'd recommend for students who maybe aren't majors that just have some interest in chemistry that could take just as like an elective course that they would want to maybe?
So we have a history with the core that is still evolving. So historically, and there's still these courses available. There's natural science, NSCI course. I think we still have that lettering. They count as core. Typically as Tier 3 courses. We're offering a chemistry and crime course in the spring.
Okay.
That happens to be underpopulated. I don't know when this is coming out, but boy, if anybody needs another core course.
It should be out in a day or two. So yeah, everybody listening.
Yeah, if you could sign up for this chemistry crime, because the students just really enjoy it and have a lot of fun. And it's really interesting. I mean, you learn real things about how crime is discovered and
right.
stuff. But those are the kind of courses. I have taught a energy and climate change course in the past, and I might return to that. But there are a series of these science courses for non-majors that just kind of give them some experience in chemistry. We have a food chemistry course, and so that we offer that periodically. So yeah, it's kind of fun stuff. Our majors sometimes say, "Hey, how come we can't take those courses?"
Yeah, different stuff. So Colt, unless you have anything else, I think we're all good for today.
Yeah, I'd agree. Do you have any last comments or?
No, thank you very much for this opportunity. I think this is great what you guys are doing here.
Thank you, we appreciate it. Yeah, I think I certainly wish that I've said this a few times. I wish I had this resource coming in, because deciding a major is sometimes really, really hard, especially when you don't, like, you can get all the pamphlets and all that stuff in the world, but hearing people who are working in it, and then we'll hear from a student who is taking the courses. You get both sides of the people actually working in the department. So I think this is going to be super helpful. So we appreciate you realizing that.
That's great.
Thank you very much for your time today.
Yeah,
I know you're probably a busy guy, so thank you very much.
All right. Have a good one.
Now we are joined with senior here at St. Vincent College, Angelina Bucci, who is a biochemistry major. Angelina, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So before we get into some of the questions about the department, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what made you decide to come to St. Vincent and be a biochem major.
Yeah, totally. I'm from Lower Burrell, which is about an hour away from here, and I've always known about St. Vincent's ever since I was in elementary school, and I've gone to private school since kindergarten, so it was kind of just like a step up from my high school, and it turns out I really liked it, and then I always knew I wanted to go into medicine, and I felt that biochemistry gave me the best path to do so.
Right.
Awesome. So what are some things about St. Vincent's science department that set it apart from the rest of schools, or different schools, I should say?
I feel like I didn't know too much going into it my freshman year, but I got a tour of Dupre and all the labs, and I didn't really come from a super sophisticated scientific high school background, so I was like, okay, this looks great, and I just ended up loving it. And just from where I started freshman year, I've grown so much in my confidence in the lab and like my skills. And a lot of the upper level chem labs are just very independent.
Dr. Gravelle said when we had him on that they work really hard to give you guys a lot of extra resources outside of the classroom. I forget exactly what one of the groups was called. But
CLP.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And then tutoring and all that stuff, obviously. But has that helped you at all?
Yes, it 100% helped, especially freshman year. I just didn't know what I was doing. I was going into all these classes like Gen Bio, Gen Chem, and like calculus and stuff. So I would go to CLPs like whenever they had them, plus sometimes professors offered extra credit. So it would also just be a boost to the grade, and I got to expand on my knowledge.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
nothing wrong with that.
No.
So why did you pick biochemistry over, say, biology or chemistry by themselves?
I've always been a very diplomatic person, never really choosing one side or the other. So I just was like, yes, I can do both. And yeah.
Made the decision way easier. Going back to our interview again with Dr. Gravelle, he discussed how sometimes the courses aren't necessarily for everybody. Like, obviously, a lot of the chemistry and science courses in general are pretty difficult. So what would you describe your course load and workload to have been like over the last few years? You can be totally honest. You don't need to sugarcoat anything. That's the whole point.
Perfect. It was pretty difficult. So freshman year, yeah, I thought it was tough freshman year, but then looking back on it, I'm like, okay, junior year was by far the worst year. So much work, like 3 labs a week.
Oh, wow.
So that's like 9 hours in the lab a week, if not more, because labs would go over, and it was just, I felt very overwhelmed, especially spring of junior year. That was probably the pinnacle of the amount of work I had, the amount of stress I had, like just everything going on. It was tough, yes. Wow. But it was all worth it.
Oh, that's good.
Well, that puts it in perspective for me. I get mad if I have 2 papers due in a week. I cannot imagine 9 hours in a lab.
Definitely not. Do you have any minors that pair along with your biochem major?
I have a math minor.
Okay, so how do you think that pairs well with biochemistry?
I think calculus, so I have to take Calc 1, 2, and 3. And you definitely use calc a lot in physical chemistry and physics, and so that definitely helped retain some of my skills for the other classes.
So I'm sure you have friends in different departments, and you have to take the core too, obviously. Mm-hmm. So do you enjoy having more hands-on classes like the labs and stuff as opposed to having lecture-based classes? Like, does that work better for you?
Yes, because for some reason, whenever I sit down in the classroom, I have a tendency to fall asleep. So whenever I'm forced to just stand up and like actively do things, it definitely helps me be engaged and like grasp the material.
Do you notice that is similar to your classmates, or does some people not respond to that super well?
I think most of us respond to labs well, because like if you sign up to be a chem major, you know you're going to be in the lab, and you're going to need to be receptive to that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
They write it all out. They know what they're signing up for.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's not a secret.
Right. And if people can't handle it, then they drop. So
it's not for everyone, that's for sure. Exactly. Not for me. So you mentioned the laboratory. So what are some things that you enjoy doing in the lab? Like, do you have maybe a lab that stood out to you, or one that you really kind of enjoy taking part in?
Probably O-Chem. I feel like that was a good in-between lab where you had some independence, you still knew what you were doing. Like some of the upper level labs, you kind of don't know what you're doing, but you just go with it, do what the professors like encourage you to do and guide you along to do, but it is a lot more advanced. And then Gen Bio, I felt like just personally, half the time I didn't know what we were actually doing in lab. I was just following the instructions and like, helping my lab partner do whatever they needed.
Right.
But no, O-Chem, I was like, okay, this makes sense. I can handle this. Like, I feel like I'm learning.
It's nice when you can tell, you can follow and actually understand the end result that you're going for. Absolutely. So you mentioned that you wanted to get into medicine. Expand on that a little bit. Like, what are you looking to get into when you graduate?
Yeah, totally. I came into college wanting to be a pediatrician.
Okay.
But now I've changed to just a pediatric physician assistant.
Okay.
So I've been applying for grad school and stuff, but the end goal is really just to help those in need through the medical field.
Is that a path that a lot of students seem to be taking? Like, is med school, is that where a lot of students seem to go, or is that something that maybe not as many people do?
I think a lot of bio and some biochem definitely go for med school, but if you're a chemistry major, you're most likely looking into getting a PhD or doing research.
And do you have any experience doing anything in the field so far, like any internship experience or stuff like that? Or
Yeah,
just
not
shadowing?
Yeah, shadowing, definitely. I love shadowing. It just like I can't do anything, like I can't touch the patients or
Right.
anything, but I'm just there to observe and like be immersed in the field.
So how does that work for chefs? So do you have is that a requirement in the department, or is that just something that people elect to do to more familiarize themselves with the work environment?
Yeah, it's more so required for applying to
Okay.
graduate school for PA. But no, the department does not require it.
Okay.
It's kind of like the flight hours.
Yeah. We were talking to Dr. Eric about how the new aviation program works, and the hours were very highly suggested and all that stuff, but there's no written requirement.
Right.
So we had Dr. Gravelle on, as I said, and he described the department very well and is smarter than I ever will be in my entire life. But in general, how would you describe the professors here? Like, what sets them apart maybe from other schools, and how have they helped you specifically?
Yeah, they are very patient. So
Necessary in a department like this, I think.
definitely, whenever we're all just like going into P-Chem and not knowing what we're doing, Dr. Gravelle just walks us through it, but it's not like he holds our hand. He just like guides us along the right path, basically, and just makes it more comprehensible. Along with Dr. Fish and Dr. Vose, they're also very kind and just willing to talk through things with you, which I think is important because if we don't have that personal one-on-one time with our professors, it's definitely a lot harder to be motivated to learn.
Absolutely. Do you have a professor specifically that has made a big impact on your life or your studies here? I mean,
I don't know. It's hard to pick one.
Yeah, no,
I'm very
absolutely.
diplomatic.
yeah, you said that earlier.
Yeah.
Took that into account.
Yeah.
But Dr. Vose is my research professor or advisor,
Okay.
and yeah, he's been super helpful with everything.
That's good.
So I have one final question, and again, be totally honest. If you could tell incoming students just a few bullet points to know about the department as they're getting ready to come in next year, what would they be?
Okay, so they're coming in as freshmen. Definitely know that your teachers are approachable. Like they can be like Dr. Taylor, he's a pretty big guy, he's loud, he can seem intimidating,
Right.
but no, he's so approachable. And same with Dr. Fisher. Like sometimes people are scared of him, but no, it's like he wants to help you. So definitely know that teachers are here to help you, and upperclassmen are also great resources in that there are so many resources within the chemistry department that need to be utilized and are there for them. And sometimes all it takes is just asking someone about like what the options are. And then there's a lot of networking, definitely. Not something a freshman normally needs to think about, but it's always good to keep in the back of your mind whenever looking towards like senior year and onward.
Yeah, this department will you're not just here to graduate and then they set you free. They have
Right.
the resources to kind of help you take that next step.
Definitely a lot of internship opportunities and possibly finding and discerning a career with that.
Awesome. I don't have anything else if you do. Andrew.
I'm all good. Do you have any last thoughts on the department before we let you go?
Become a chemistry major, yes, join the chem department.
Yes.
Because we are very close-knit. Since we're so small, it's just a great community to be around.
Good to know. Okay.
Awesome. Take it from Angelina.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for your time, Angelina. We really appreciate it.
Thanks again for having me.
No problem. Anytime.
We want to thank Dr. Gravelle and Angelina for coming on today. We really appreciate them giving up some of their time to come talk about the department. This was some pretty good insight, Colt, to the chem department. I got to be honest, I didn't know a ton about it before this, but it sounds like a really fun, well-run machine there.
No, absolutely. Even though it is such a small community, I think they have a lot of fun over there in the chem department. Seems like a good group to be around for sure. So if you're interested, definitely do some more research.
Absolutely. And I think they both did a good job touching on the the resources that are available to students outside of just, the academic setting in the classroom. And I think that's super important for departments like chemistry and I'm sure biology and mathematics too. A lot of them, some of the ideas are a little bit abstract, I think, so they need that extra resource. So it's good that St. Vincent provides that for them.
Yeah, most definitely. And especially if you're going to get extra credit out of it, you might as well earn those points and learn a bit more about what you're learning in the classroom. So, like, nothing go wrong by going to one of these things, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And I do want to touch on a second something that Dr. Gravelle said about some of the classes that you could take even if you were not a science major. There was a bunch of classes they offered. If I remember correctly, there was one or two that had maybe a lab with them, so you get to do some entry-level stuff. If that's something of interest to you, but you maybe don't want to pursue a full bachelor's degree.
Right.
So anybody listening who's already, has their degree picked out and all that stuff, there's still classes available here that you can take pretty easily.
Yeah, there's a criminology and chemistry one that I know he mentioned, and crim is a huge department here, so we'll probably talk about that major sooner than later. But
absolutely,
yeah, phenomenal.
There was environmental chemistry too. I think there was wasn't there something? Was there history maybe?
Something of history.
Yeah, some of the subjects surprised me for sure. Like I don't know. I didn't picture that being something that they could offer, but
me neither. They're always changing the core and like adding and subtracting other classes. So there's always something.
Yeah. So for better or worse, there's always a new option for somebody to take here.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that's gonna wrap up our latest episode of the Major Step Podcast here on WSBC Radio. We'd like to thank everybody for listening, and we'll be back next week with Logan Root to talk a little bit about the finance department here at St. Vincent.
Hey there, listeners. I'm Matt Boyer, station manager of WSVC Radio. If you like what you're listening to, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and hit that bell button to be notified with all of our newest updates. Every day, one of our shows is releasing a new episode. Stick around and stay tuned.